Great. So for those of you who have been able to make it through the heat, hasn't this been amazing so far? Yeah. Kind of puts a spark in your heart, right? You want to go out there and do something, right? You want to go out there, go home next week and, you know, just get pumped and go change the world, right? Right? Yes? Yeah. But then as you get in your car, maybe Monday, you start heading to work, what's that little voice in the back of your head start to say? Yeah. It's a lot of work. For me, it's kind of like this huge big ball of bad news that comes rolling down to kind of squash all our great ideas and all our great thoughts. And it's easy to start to lose faith. We have used as a country, or actually probably as a society for the last 50 years, physics is the main metaphor, the main model for how we solve problems. You just see it in our language when you think about it. We talk about products taking quantum leaps and, they're buttons, tools, accessories. We think about the economy is now run by algorithm, not by people. So most of the whole way we framed how we solve problems has been a physics-based approach. This is okay, it's given us computers, and computers are fantastic. But computers really aren't that much smarter than your dog. A really, 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 really fast dog, but a dog nonetheless. What is computers, what are they made of? In terms of, they make a decision between what and what? 1 and 0, right? True and false, 1 and 0. Your dog's brain has the same basic ability. It can make a yes or a no decision. It can't make a multiple choice decision. So what I'm going to propose is that one of the problems that we face now going into this new century is that we have a different set of problems, and these problems require us to use a different metaphor and a different framework to solve them. And for us, at least at RapidChange, that model or that metaphor is biology. Specifically, biology of the brain. How we make decisions. How we process new information as it comes to us. In essence, our premise at RapidChange is that if we have a shared understanding of how each of us feels, thinks, and acts, then we have a greater ability then to focus on solutions rather than winning, on creativity rather than destroying. Think about this for 1 second. These are great ideas we heard, but there was another message that came through in these messages earlier today, and that is creating something causes much more energy than replication, right? Creation has much more energy than replication. So whatever you do when you go out to try and create your own, take these ideas forward, remember, it's got to be your own. You've got to customize it to who you are and what you're doing. So for us, the brain becomes a place where we can start to look at the world just a little bit differently. And so that we're focused on solving and not winning. So let me introduce you to your brain. Now, first of all, how many people here have hearts? Okay. Now, can we accept that all our hearts basically work the same way? Blood comes in one way, goes out the other way, you pick some stuff up and dump some stuff out, and goes to the rest of your body. Is that correct? Yes? Okay. Now, we all have lungs. Is that correct? All right? Some of us have damaged them, some of us haven't. But they all work on basically the same systems. And then how about livers? Some of us have them, and some of us have abused them. Either way, we all have livers, and they work the same way. So in our culture, it's been interesting to me as we've learned about, in the last 15 years, we've learned an incredible amount about the brain. Yet we still have this kind of sense that the brain is somehow different than these other organs, that our brain is where our personality resides and how we're somehow different. Unfortunately, that's not really the case. Our brain is made up, all our brains are made up of 3 to 4 basic systems when we process new information. And it's made up of different systems that also control movement. So, example, if everybody would take their left foot and raise it up in the air, if you would, and have it go clockwise. All right, just Now take your left hand and try to go counterclockwise with it and see what happens. All right, that's a system in your brain that controls your movement, okay? It's your right brain controlling your left left brain controlling your right side. It's a different movement, a different system that your brain uses when it processes new information. I'm going to introduce you to your brain. Now, the first person I want to introduce you to is Hart. Hartford, if you would come up here. Hartford is my reptilian brain. Now, the reptilian brain is something that we share with all animals. It controls everything we do without thinking. All right? So all those things we just mentioned, our heartbeat, our lungs, all those functions that we do without thinking. He is built for speed, but not for accuracy. Now this is really good for us because hundreds and hundreds of years ago when we were out in the woods and being chased by a bear, anybody who stopped to think and have a committee meeting about how to get away, what happened to them? They got eaten, right? So they didn't survive in the great evolutionary tale. So there was a great reason for us to have this reptilian brain, but it also uses a lot of energy. It uses a lot of blood, oxygen, and chemical electricity. He's basically constantly looking out to make sure that your heart is beating, your lungs are breathing, your bodily functions are working correct. It's a hog. He wants all the energy there. And so he's constantly looking to see if he's safe. In fact, this part of the brain we like to say asks just one question. And that question is, am I safe? Right? So when you walk into a new room, you enter a new situation, you're looking around to see, who do I stand with? Am I safe? Can I enter here? Should I not go here? Those are the kind of questions that your reptilian brain is asking. Over the years, your reptilian brain has developed something we call the amygdala. The amygdala is where the fight, flight, or freeze response occurs in our brain. Now, the problem is that the reptilian brain doesn't know the difference between the dog that's off leash growling at you and coming across the street, and your boss off leash coming at you, blaming you for something that wasn't your fault, or yelling at you because they think you're stupid, or whatever. It can't make the difference. Because the reptilian brain doesn't understand words. So if it doesn't understand words, what do you think it's reading? Body language and tone of voice. So think about your dog again. Right? What does your dog respond to? Tone of voice and your body language. You could be saying, you're the stupidest thing in the world, but it still thinks you're being nice to it. So this is the reptilian brain. It only cares about you. It only cares about your safety, your protection. I want to introduce you next to before I do that, let me just one thing to remember. You cannot reason someone out of what they did not reason themselves into. Now think about this for a minute. The reptilian brain doesn't have access to words, so is it able to reason? No. It's able to react. So that one finger salute you give to someone when they cut you off in traffic, that's a reptilian brain response. All right? When you tailgate them for 5 miles and then push them off the side of the road into a big ditch, that's the neocortex activity. We'll get to that in a minute. So the next part of the brain I want to introduce you to is aerial. And aerial is going to be my limbic system. So you sit around and applaud here. I kind of feel like Robin Williams here. I'm going to take a drink every 5 minutes. But I don't want to throw them into the front seat, in the front row. Okay, so I got my limbic brain. The limbic brain is a part of the brain we share with all mammals. And what it does is it allows us to recognize that we're part of a family, we're part of a group, a pack, a herd, whatever, or a posse, or whatever the right term is. The key difference to think about is if a reptile has babies, it has no emotional attachment to its babies. So if it's hungry, what does it do? It eats its kids. For the most part, mammals don't do that. So mammals basically are looking, do I belong to this group? Am I respected? Do I have a place? Do I have a voice? Am I actually part of this group? And the reason that is because this part of the brain is where the chemicals that we call emotion begin. Now, we think there's like a gajillion types of emotion, and we've got different words for it, but basically emotions are a mixture of chemicals and hormones. So this is the part of the brain where cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine, serotonin, all those things. This is the part of the brain that says you must start producing. In the reptilian brain, if you're really scared, what happens is it sends all the blood and oxygen away from your brain and to your extremities. Any idea why it would do that? Because if you're going to get ready to run, you need the blood there. If you're going to get ready to punch somebody, you need the blood there. You don't want it in your brain. You basically want to be able to react, right? Built for speed, not for accuracy. So when we get to the limbic system has got these emotions, but it's also where the long-term memory resides. So any of you have loved ones who have Alzheimer's, this part of the brain is actually deep inside our brain, and it's when you dream at night, most of what happens in your working memory downloads into your long-term memory. And it's interesting for those of us in this field right now is that the part of your brain that holds long-term memory and the part of your brain that creates emotions, they sit right on top of each other. So it's interesting, as we go around the country, we'll ask people, do you remember where you were when John F. Kennedy was shot? And people will be able to tell us who they were sitting next to, who their teacher was, what they were wearing. They can describe the scene in amazing detail. Because we remember what we feel is important, not what we calculate to be important. So in our culture, respect often comes down to one thing, and that is, do we feel listened to? Is someone listening to us? Okay. So the quote I've attached to this is just this simple one by John Rady, who's a doctor at Harvard. We remember what we feel is important, not what we calculate to be important. So if you think about where were you on 9/11, or where were you when the Challenger blew up, chances are you have a pretty vivid memory of what was happening there. I want you to introduce to the next part of my brain, if you would, please. Lee's going to come up here, and Lee is going to be, Lee is my neocortex. Now this is the part of the brain that we all like to think we all use all the time, because this is where logic, reason, creativity, context, data occur, and it's also the part of the brain that constantly looks for patterns. The problem is that it's very easily bored. This part of the brain needs a fair amount of energy, blood, oxygen, chemical, electrical activity, in order to operate. The problem is that the reptilian and the limbic system need that energy too. So there's this kind of constant power sharing arrangement going on. So has anybody here driven home one day after work and not really remembered most of the drive? That's it? Okay. That's because what happens is your neocortex says, you know what? I've done this a zillion times. I don't really need to pay attention. So reptilian, limbic, you guys can have the blood, the oxygen, and the chemicals. So that's also why your reaction time when somebody steps out in front of you on the street tends to quicken, because that's where all your blood, oxygen, and chemicals are. So that's our neocortex. Thank you. Now, I'm thinking my next part of the brain is actually, well, let me just do this real quick. One of the things to think about as we move here is that you cannot get to the thinking brain without going through the protective brain. And here's what that means. When you are scared or angry, when the reptilian brain sends the blood out to your extremities, it also secretes a chemical that slows down the electrical connections in the brain from an average of 287 miles an hour. That's the speed that connection that your electrodes in the brain travel at, to less than 40 miles an hour. So if you've ever had the experience where you're really scared or really angry and time seems to move in slow motion, that's because your brain is making connections much slower. You may have trouble making connections at all. That's why a lot of smart people do stupid things. When you let the anger and when you let fear drive your decision-making process. Now the last part of the brain, and if I could, Emery, right? Can I have you come up here? Yeah, give Emery a round of applause. Emery is my prefrontal lobe. That's a part of the brain that's actually part of the neocortex system. But what's interesting about this brain is that only humans, dolphins, bonobos have clear, defined prefrontal lobes. Other mammals have developing prefrontal lobes, but none is clearly defined as bonobos, dolphins, and humans. And this we like to call, because I figure this is what's going to happen someday, the CEO of our brain. So Emery is the CEO of our brain. He'll probably be all our CEOs someday. And this is the part of the brain that allows us to see consequences for our behavior. Now, none of us is a psychic, right? No one in here claims to be a psychic. I want to make sure I'm okay with that. I don't want to offend anyone who thinks they are. But because the people we're not psychic, but we can imagine different consequences for our behavior. If we do X, one of many different things could happen. And I'm going to have to respond in a lot of different ways. Again, back to the dog. The dog can't do that. Humans can. We can see a multiple of different options in front of us. The problem, in a sense, becomes this. When we have these great ideas that we take back from TED, when we have a great plan that we want to unleash, we've already developed the energy and the logic and the data and the reason. So the first thing we do is we go back to our friends or to our office or to the community, and we want to talk to these two parts of the brain, the neocortex and the prefrontal lobe. When people hear something new for the first time, where do you think they are? What part of the brain are most people when they hear something new? Nope. They're at the reptilian brain. Here's how it works. Every single stimuli that you receive goes through the reptilian brain before it goes anywhere else. Okay? Everything goes through the brainstem and this reptilian limbic process first. The reason we evolved that way was so that we could run away from the bear in the woods. It hasn't changed because it took it millions of years to wire that way. It's not going to unwire itself in 20, 30, 40, 50 years just because we want it to. That's not even 2 generations, folks. So we're wired so that everything goes through the reptilian and the limbic before you even get to the neocortex. If you do an fMRI of your brain, what you'll find out is that most of the time, the hottest spots, the most blood, the most oxygen, the most electrical activity is happening in your reptilian and your limbic brain. These guys are up here to show you what that looks like. So, again, reptilian, limbic, neocortex, prefrontal lobe, CEO. So let's say that I am one of our recent clients and I'm an airline. And I've decided that after meeting with the Wall Street folks, they've kind of put some pressure on us. We have 35,000 employees. We've decided that we're going to need to lay off 5,000 people. We're not really sure how we're going to do it yet or where, but we think it's probably the right thing to do to tell people now that we're going to be laying off 5,000 people. So, if I'm a typical leader, I'm going to go, hey Lee, listen, I know times are tough, things are really difficult out there, but I've sat down and I've looked at the papers and I've looked at the work and I've really decided that we're going to lay off 5,000 people.
Whoa.
And I know that's a problem, and I know
Ben,
what.
Ben.
What?
You can't come in here like that.
Why not?
Ben, we're about to the Dreamliner. We're rolling it out now. We need these.
We got 5,000 jobs I have to cut.
Dan.
What?
Dan, that's not. We've been working together on this. It's our team. Like, we've been through this before, and we really can't afford the competency. We can't afford to lose that.
Okay, so here's the situation. I tried to talk to Lee. What happened? The reptile comes up. What does he want to know? He wants to know if he's safe, right? He wants to know, he's not ready to talk about the data that shows us that we can't get the Dreamliner off because we can't afford to do it. He doesn't want to hear that. He's not ready to listen. He's going to be sitting here saying, no. So here's your job part. I'm going to try to get to the CEO back there. If at any time you feel that I'm saying something that's not making you feel safe, you need to stand up and pull me back to the front of the line. If you hear me do anything that doesn't respect you, your view, your approach to things, your job is to smack him so that he will come up and get you. Because the limbic system and the reptilian brain are actually connected at the amygdala. Your job is to probably be bored. And I'm trying to get to you. We'll see if I can do that in the time allotted. All right. So I'm going to change. This is my brain for a minute, or I won't say it's Hartford's brain. Listen. I know you've been a good employee here, but I've been looking at the schedules, and I'm going to have to change your work schedule. I've decided that I'm going to have you do 4 12-hour shifts from now on. And I know it may have some trouble, but I've got this idea, I've got a plan. And in fact, I've got a plan I want to roll out to everybody in the workplace. I have got the right idea. So are you feeling safe at this point?
Yeah, your Friday's off.
No, I'm sorry. Your days off are going to be Monday and Tuesday.
Okay.
So are you feeling safe about that?
Yeah.
You do feel safe? Yeah. Okay. Huh.
Yeah,
Would you guys feel safe about that?
Better about Friday.
No, I wouldn't feel safe about it. Why would?
I'm a freelancer. Hold on. Sorry. All right. No, the terrible idea.
Terrible idea.
Okay.
Now, what word did I use over I? So a normal reptilian brain would say, wait a second, where am I in that picture? Right? How does this affect me? What's up? So just like when they came out and announced we were going to lay off 5,000 people out of 35,000, who was scared the next day? 5,000 or 35,000? Right, exactly. So, interestingly enough, that particular airline over the next 6 months until the company got its act together had its worst on-time record, its worst safety record, and its worst baggage delivery. Is that a surprise? No, because what are people worrying about? They're not worrying about their job. They're worrying about, am I going to be one of those 5,000? And what do we do if we don't know something? We invent something. If we don't know it, we make it up. We're wired to do it because our brain wants to close the loop. Everybody does it. It's not good people versus bad people. It's everybody. So let's pretend that Hart has let me through, and now I'm going to talk here to Ariel. So Ariel, thank you. I've decided I want to set up a committee to look at our work schedules. And I appreciate you agreeing to be on this committee. And here's what's going to happen. I've done all this research. I want you guys to look at it and just tell me that I'm on the right course, and then I'll take your blessing and go out and tell everybody else. How's that feel? Yeah, hit him.
I think you actually, I think you need to talk about this a little bit more.
Talk? I have this great idea. I'm ready to do this.
But we work as a team here. That's not really the way we work.
Okay. Now, the third time I try to do this, is it going to be easier or harder for me to get past Hart? Harder, right? I mean, as soon as I step into the room, Hart's reptilian brain is going to be up going. All right, bogey coming in at, all right. So I'm still trying to, I haven't gotten to Lee yet. She's sitting there bored to tears. She's looking around trying to figure out what she's doing. So let me see, Ariel, okay, we're going to put this committee together, and what I'd like to do is have each of us on the committee do some research, bring it back, we'll hear everybody's take on this, we'll ask some other departments, and then we'll make this decision as a group. This won't be mine, we'll make it as a group, and we'll do it by consensus, and then we'll take it up to the head honchos, and they're going to have to sign off on it completely, but we'll bring it together as a group. Is that okay? Good, good. So, we've got all this data now, Lee. How are you? I want to try to make this as interesting for you as possible. So I'm giving you all the data. I want you to crank it out. And I can't give you any extra pay or any extra hours, but on your off time, if you would crank that data for me and get back to me, I'd appreciate it. Now, what do you be doing? Yeah. So what happens? Your reptilian brain goes, wait a second, that's not what I signed up for, right? So I'm still having a hard time getting enamored. So we like to think that we're inspired by great speeches, by the things that people do. Inspiration is a choice. And it only comes after Hart and Ariel have been satisfied so that Lee can actually get involved in the data and understand it. And then we make our decision to be inspired. And some people will say, well, Dan, what about Jesus? Well, Jesus made people feel safe. He sat with people who often didn't feel respected. Then he asked them to use a part of their brain that in ancient times was not particularly called upon. So he spoke to plain people in parables. It makes you use a part of your brain that you don't usually have to use. People chose to be inspired. Right? Martin Luther King. If he gave that same speech 10 years earlier, nobody would have known who he was. But he made enough people feel safe, enough people respected him, so when they were interested in what he said, and eventually inspired what he said. I want to tell you folks is that this is not psychology. This is not theology. It is not sociology. This is biology. And this is how our brain functions. And whenever we try to do something that goes against the grain of human nature, we are bound to fail. That is why 70% of all business initiatives fail. That is why 90% of all new businesses fail. That is why 80% of all Lean Six Sigma Toyota Way initiatives fail. It's because we don't recognize that it only goes one way. What I'd like to leave you with is that we need a new framework to solve the problems where everyone has a voice. And we recognize that the point is to solve, not to win. Thank you.